This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Hello and welcome to War Horses, the only college equestrian podcast that needs to apologize for not giving you a preview of the very first meet of the season. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Let's talk about some college equestrian. So last week in the preseason episode, I said there weren't any meets this week. That was wrong. After I had submitted the episode to my editor, I realized that there was a meet. It was a very important one at that. Now, if I had done a preview of it, it would have gone something like this. They're both pretty good. I think it's going to be close, and I think the home team's going to win. So, let's see what happened this week.
Meet recaps.
So we had number 2 SMU going on the road to number 1 TCU. This was a rematch of last season's national championship meet, which SMU won, obviously. But with it being at TCU, I think that gave them the advantage. Add into that TCU has just a little bit more returning talent than anybody else, and I definitely would have favored TCU in this. So the meet started off with fences. In the matchup favorites, this one looked pretty much like it was going to be 2-2 with a toss-up point. SMU would end up winning the event 3-2, so things pretty much went as expected. Reining was the first Western event, and in that one, the matchups favored TCU in 3 of them, and the other 2 points were toss-up. Well, the event finished 3-2 for TCU, so here again, each team is getting the favored points, but SMU basically took those toss-up points. And this made the halftime score 5-5, so everything was locked up. So over we go to the flat in the second half. Here again, the stats like TCU. They favored them in 3 points. SMU was favored in 1, and the last one was a toss-up. Well, guess what happened? TCU won the event 3-2. So once again, the toss-ups went to SMU, and that kind of kept them in the meet all day. In the final event, horsemanship, this is one where TCU was favored overall. 2 points were favored to the Frog, 1 point was favored to the Mustangs, and 2 looked to be up for grabs. Well, SMU won horsemanship 3-2, making the final score 10-10. That meant all the raw score points would be combined into the tiebreaker formula, and after that, TCU narrowly wins 1,599.75 to 1,548.5. And I'll tell you, SMU, they had a rider who got a 0 on her ride. That happens. And when it does happen, it becomes nearly impossible to win in a tiebreaker when that happens. You got to hope that the other team gets a 0 too, and that sort of evens things out. Otherwise, you're just not going to have the tiebreaker numbers. And frankly, if that ride had not been a 0, if it had just been some normal score, even if she'd lost that point and been within a few points of her opponent, then SMU probably would have had the higher tiebreaker score. That's how well SMU did on the road in this meet, even though it was a loss. I think SMU took advantage, every advantage that TCU gave them, they just took it, and they nearly pulled off the big upset. And I think we can call it an upset because, you would expect that 2 teams this evenly matched that the home team would win, and maybe even by a couple of points, but with it being this close like that really speaks well of SMU. For TCU, you guys won, and, there's a lot to be said for that, but it was very, very close, probably closer than it should have been. Also, those toss-up points seem to always go to SMU instead of you guys, so you might want to look into that. I know a lot of it was because of some new riders, although SMU had some new riders as well, so, you kind of think, well, maybe SMU's new riders are further along. But anyway, TCU gets the win, and, they're not going to have very long to cheer about that because next week they're going to come to Auburn, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Now, around the country we had lots of scrimmages and stuff, but like I said before, those are mostly private affairs. It's hard to get a bead on what all's going on with those, so I don't really have anything to report on those. Okay, so with our first meet in the books, let's take a look at the official Auburn Elvis College Equestrian Rankings. Well, I'm going to leave the rankings alone this week. I'm not going to drop SMU any for the loss because basically they did a lot better than expected going into the number 1 team in the nation like that and almost pulling off the upset. And I really doubt any other team in the nation would have done better. So SMU's going to stay at number 2. Everybody's going to stay where they are. And that's in the dual discipline teams. But I will run through the rankings just to remind everybody. I'm not going to pause for the animal sounds. We're just going to run through these really quickly. Number 1 is TCU, number 2 is SMU, number 3 is Texas A&M, number 4 is Auburn, number 5 is Georgia, number 6 is Oklahoma State, number 7 is South Carolina, and number 8 is UC Davis. Now remember, the top 8 are all that's going to get that invite to the national championship down in Ocala, but there are other teams hoping to break into that top 8, and they are number 9 Baylor and number 10 UT Martin. And then after them, it would be Delaware State, Fresno State, South Dakota State, and Minnesota Crookston, probably in that order. Now, the NCEA has released their rankings, and they got close to right. They were a bit off in a few places. Basically, they looked at what happened last season. They kind of figured, well, I guess nobody has graduated or left their programs, so let's make everything exactly the same, unless it was UC Davis. They completely forgot about UC Davis, and oh well. They do that every year. They forget about the what are they, 2-3-time ECAC championship, and yet they can't get any darn respect in the rankings. I don't know what's up with that. They kind of had Auburn and Oklahoma State flipped, which I get it. You know, last time you saw those two teams, Oklahoma State beat Auburn, and that's great, but Oklahoma State has lost some girls, Auburn has lost some girls, so we don't know what they would do right now. All we got to go on is who's coming back, and I can tell you, Auburn's got a little bit more talent than Oklahoma State right now. Now, we don't know how the freshmen are going to do, don't know how that's going to be for anybody, although it looks pretty good for SMU right now. But anyway, so they got some of it wrong, they got most of it right, and yeah, I'll tell you, it's not great being a UC Davis fan, because you're not getting any respect in the national rankings. I don't know what's up with that. But enough about the dual discipline teams. Let's talk about the single discipline teams. I skipped over them last week so that Bridgewater and I think even Sweetbriar doesn't have their rosters online, and Centenary. Give them a chance to put their rosters up. Centenary actually did. Bridgewater is still living in the past, and so is Sweetbriar. But I'm not going to let that hold us back. What I'm basically going to do is take all the seniors off. So if you got a fifth year who's coming back, well, they're not going to get counted. But that's what you get for not posting your roster online. And so basically I just advanced everybody up. So when we look at everything, the number 1 team in the nation is, no surprise, Lynchburg. But I'll tell you, it ain't even close. Lynchburg returns 14 starters, and 12 of those starters are quality starters, which means riders with at least 50% winning percentages. Also, keep in mind that there ain't but 10 dang riders in a meet, so basically Lynchburg has 2 riders that have ridden and started enough to count as starters, but then they brought in some better riders, so those other riders are just sitting on the bench. And yeah, if you face Lynchburg, just know that there are going to be 2 girls who are probably good enough to start on your team, but they can't even get into a meet on their team. So that's kind of what all of y'all are dealing with right now. So they got 14 returning starters, 12 of those are quality starters. They average a whopping 6.79 points per meet, and their quality starters account for, what is my notes on that? Oh, well, they account for a lot of that. All of it, no, because all of their starters are quality starters. So yeah. So they're the same thing, and yeah, that's rough when every single returning starter is a quality starter. Good luck with that, everybody. Oh, I got to tell you who the quality starters are. I did that last week with the dual discipline teams. Going to do that here with the single ones. And yeah, this is the part of the show where I horribly mispronounce everybody's names, and that either makes you laugh or makes you upset if you're a parent. Sorry about that, but you know, you're the ones who named your daughter's Chalice instead of Chalice. Anyway, here we go. Quality starters for Lynchburg. In fences, Fallon Bellicastro, Emma Schweitzer, Brentley Smith, Jacqueline Needle, Abby Zemp, and McKenna Moss. On the flat, they have Kelly McCormick, Lucy Metzler, Emma Schweitzer, Fallon Bellicastro, Abby Zemp, and Devin Borden. Okay, so who is number 2? Well, that is Sweetbriar. The Vixens return 7 starters, and all 7 of those starters are quality starters. They average 4.91 points across all of their returning starters. And again, it's the same number because all their starters are quality starters. So, really good numbers there. And their quality starters are, in fences, Catherine Atherton, Isabel Meserick, Naomi Dacus, and Wyatt Felton. On the flat, their quality starters are Catherine Atherton, Ella Peterson, and Wyatt Felton. Now again, they didn't post their updated roster, so I'm assuming all those girls came back. And if they don't, well, who knows. they're still going to be number 2. There ain't nobody coming back that's going to jump them to number 1. And unless the whole place, I don't know, got discredited or something and, they went out of business or something, they ain't going to fall below number 2 either. Sweetbriar is number 2 right now. All right. But who's number 3? Well, that would be Sewanee. I know. A lot of y'all are probably a little surprised at that. This is based on numbers. This ain't based on me, okay? This ain't me using the force. I'm just going by the stats. The Tigers return 6 starters, and 3 of those are quality starters. They return 2.5 points per meet overall with all their starters, and their quality starters account for 2.17 of those points. So you got half of the people doing almost all of the scoring for them. Now, like I said, y'all might be surprised, but they return more quality starting talent than any other schools that aren't named Lynchburg and Sweetbriar. Now, other teams have more quantity, but Sewanee has quality. And these quality riders are Jenna McAmees and Emma Samath. They're over in fences, and Emma Samath is their quality starter on the flat. Okay, at number 4, we have Dartmouth. The Green returned 8 starters, 3 of which are quality starters. They average 3.19 points per meet from their returners, and 1.86 of that is from those 3 quality starters. So they average a little bit higher points per meet overall, but only 3 of their 8 returners are quality starters, and they don't average as much as Sewanee, so that's why Sewanee gets a little bit of the bump ahead of Dartmouth. And it occurs to me that I did not write the names down of those 3 quality starters. Oh my goodness. And I did it for everybody else. Oh, I'm a terrible person. All right, well, I'm going to have to stop recording and go look this up. Hold on, everybody. All right, I am back. I have looked up the 3 Dartmouth quality starters, and they are, in fences, Cassidy Exner. And over on the flat, Samantha Takas and Cassidy Exner. All right, so those are your 3 quality starters there for Dartmouth. Sorry I didn't have that written down, but there you go. Now, these 4 teams that I just mentioned, they represent the 4 teams that would make it into the national championship tournament if the thing were held today. But after those 4, we got the rest of the field trying to break into that top 4. And number 5 is Bridgewater. Now, again, I bet this might surprise some of y'all that the Eagles are a little bit ahead of some of the other teams. But they have a slightly better set of returning starters than the remaining teams. They return 9 starters, with 2 of those being quality starters. Let's see, they return 2.06 points per meet, and 1.15 of that is due to those 2 quality starters. And they are Jimena Garcia Nunez in fences and Kelsey Quinn on the flat. Number 6 is Sacred Heart. The Pioneers returned 5 starters, 1 of which is a quality starter. These 5 starters represent 2.25 points per meet overall, and 0.8 of that is due to their quality flat starter, Kylie Hollick. Okay, so number 7 is Berry College. With Berry, they don't have the history of competition like the other schools do. They're relatively new, so they don't have as many number of meets that you could look at and say, okay, these girls have lots of starts. So basically I had to credit 4 starts as the threshold instead of 5 that I typically do for everybody else. That said, they return 2 starters, both of which are quality starters. They average 1 point per meet for their 2 quality riders. And they are Megan Kurzman in fences and Megan Kurzman in the flat. So basically she's their quality rider. So it's the Megan Kurzman show over at Berry right now. All right. Number 8 is College of Charleston. The Cougars return 6 starters, 1 of which is a quality starter. They return 2.71 points per meet overall, with their 1 quality starter responsible for 1/2 of a point of that. And their quality starter is Caroline Berg on the flat. And at number 9 is our newest member of the league, Centenary University.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
The Cyclones are brand new, so they don't have any rider history in the NCEA meets, and no one from another NCEA program transferred into there, so basically it's no information available for them at this time, so they get bumped down to number 9. They might have a lot of great riders, we'll find out pretty soon, but yeah, right now, no data means you end up number 9. So those are all of this week's rankings. Now we're going to look into the future with some meet previews. And it looks like we've got about 6 meets this week. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you can basically expect that when there's 2 closely matched teams, the home team is probably going to win. Okay, that's how the whole season's going to go for everybody. I expect every team to have at least 2 losses. There's just a lot of parity this year. And so if there's a team close to you in terms of talent, the home team's probably going to win in that meet. Now, first off, on Friday is Minnesota Crookston at Delaware State. I think Crookston has gotten a little bit better over time. I think Delaware State maybe took a step back at the end of last season. So when I look at the returning talent, I think this is still going to be mostly the Hornets scoring in this one. I imagine Crookston will probably get 1 or 2 points. Not really sure if this is going to be a 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, but basically Crookston will get a point or 2. So yeah, I think the Hornets are going to win in a landslide. The next meet on Friday is a big one, TCU at Auburn. Now, like I just said, whenever you have 2 closely matched teams, the home team is probably going to win this season. Now, we saw TCU's returning starters hold their own against SMU, but their new riders are still developing. I think Auburn is going to win fences and flat. I think Auburn will probably lose reining, and I think Auburn will hold on just enough in horsemanship to squeak out a 1 or 2 point win over the number 1 team. Also on Friday is College of Charleston at Lynchburg. Now, this one's going to be brutal. Earlier, I told you just how much talent there is at Lynchburg. They got talent. There's going to be girls holding clipboards and opening up gates to let horses in and out of the ring who are good enough to start for College of Charleston. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be brutal. It's going to be 10-0 Hornets or 8-0 if it's just a 4-on-4. There you go. On Saturday, we get to see league newcomers, Centenary University, take on College of Charleston. This will be at Lynchburg. I'm not sure what we're going to expect out of this one. It's just going to be Caroline Berg, I guess. I think she's going to lead the Cougars to victory on this one. I don't know how many. The most she can get is 2, so maybe everything else will tie, and she'll be the MOP in both of those because she'll be the only one getting points. That's probably not going to happen, but that's the prediction I'm going with. After that, we have South Carolina facing off against Delaware State. I think Carol Gwynn's Gamecocks are going to dominate this. They have a lot more experience than the Hornets, so look for that one to be one of the exceptions to the home team always wins rule. And then a little bit after that, South Carolina is also going to face Minnesota Crookston. The Golden Eagles just don't have the firepower to hang with a team like South Carolina. I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina starts almost a completely different lineup against them. Because again, if you remember last week, they got a ton of returning starters or girls who have had a ton of starts, and they don't always win. So I think you're going to see a lot of different people. I don't think you're going to see the same lineups. If you see the same lineups, I'll just go ahead and tell you, boy, that's a little bit of a wasted opportunity, because if you're going to ride against Minnesota Crookston at a neutral site, you need to cycle in some new girls and see what they can do. Because no offense, Crookston, but the risk of losing that meet is pretty low for South Carolina, so it would be nice to see a lot of new names. I think it's going to be a 10-0 beatdown. Or 8-0. Well, not 10-0. It's going to be 20 or it's going to be 16. Sorry. Yeah, it's a dual discipline meet. Anyway, it's going to be Gamecocks by 100. Okay. Then we've got Centenary facing Lynchburg. And no chance here. This is going to be 10-0. It would be more than that if they allowed more riders. But yeah, oh my goodness. Then on we go to Sunday. TCU is going to ride against Georgia. So basically TCU will have ridden against Auburn. The next day they go over to Georgia. Not ideal, going on the road like this, but it saves you a ton of money. I know why teams do it. Auburn's going to do it when they go to Texas. They're going to ride against 2 teams. Really tough because, again, the home team has their own horses, but the patterns that they're going to ride at Auburn probably aren't the same patterns as they're going to ride over at Georgia. Well, TCU, they got to split their practice time among those 2 patterns. They got to get ready for both sets. Well, Auburn only has to get ready for Auburn's pattern patterns, and Georgia only has to get ready for Georgia's pattern. So big advantage for the home teams in this one. I think when you look at the statistics, actually Georgia is pretty even with Auburn. So all these teams are close enough that I think the home team's just going to win. I think Georgia's going to win in fences and flat, and then I think they're going to get just enough points in the Western event to keep it close and beat TCU. So yeah, the 2024-25 season has begun, and we are going to cover all the action over these next few months. Don't really have a soapbox issue. Oh, well, you know what? All right. I'm probably not going to do the darn Golden Score Sheet Award this time because, oh, man, right out of the gate, darn TCU, the winner from last year, they had problem. Now, I got to check the official score sheet because all I saw was the online stuff, and the online stuff always has problems, no matter who it is, and that's not official. But they had the darn, and everything they passed, they posted after the win. So, because it went to a tiebreaker, so everybody's posting what the tiebreaker totals were. And the darn decimal numbers, the 0.75 and the 0.50, they got those switched. So they put TCU's decimal number over with SMU's score and the same, they'll go in the other way. It was wrong. The math is wrong. You can't be doing that. Oh, anyway, all that to say, I'm not sure I'm going to do the Golden Score Sheet Award this year. It took a darn lot of time, and, and then here we are in the very first meet. We got a problem with the tiebreaker, and this was a meet where the tiebreaker was important. I don't know what to do with y'all. Okay, well, you just got to choose your battles, and this is a battle maybe I just need to say, you know what? Y'all just need remedial math. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to something positive. And we got great meets. The season's starting up. Everybody's about to have a ton of fun. And unless you're riding against Lynchburg, you ain't going to have no fun. But everybody else will. So, well, that's all for this episode. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Well, thank you very much for listening, and more horses.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.